to accomplish, and that was to continue their research.
Endlessly fascinating, no?
Yes, it is.
And I know that some folks would probably kind of puzzle and wonder, boy, would that be enough? Argentina's very late entree into the war. Now, I think it's pretty clear it wasn't just because they wanted to have their name on the winning team, but
right.
For you, as you had mentioned, some very logistical and tactical considerations in mind for that maneuver on their part. But that
Absolutely.
probably wasn't the only mechanism of transfer, so to speak, for the Nazi International to go underground. There's also a body of work out there readily accessible for folks, starting with the Odessa files and that chain of information about how, once again, possibly the logistics occurred to move this infrastructure of people, of resources, and of toys to the southern hemisphere.
Well, there's the technology and resource transfer, Antonin, was huge. There were black U-boats conducting these operations months after the end of the war. You can dig and scratch long enough, and I haven't even written about this in my book, or any of my books, but another researcher named Henry Stevens has just came out with a book. You know, the secret U-boat bases in the Canary Islands were part of this operation, as was Franco's nationalist Spain. You have an enormous amount of transference of wealth and personnel, but here is the key component that most people are missing. Not only of wealth and personnel, but of patents, of blueprints, and of scientists and technicians to South America. This is the key part of the story. And lest we forget, this also had immediate post-war political repercussions, because you find these same Nazis setting up these rat line operations involved ostensibly at the behest of the CIA in the overthrow of King Farouk in Egypt and the installation of Gamal Abdel Nasser. All right, why is that so significant? Well, it's of major significance right now, because we're witnessing the recent departure of Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. Well, Hosni Mubarak was simply the continuation of that Egyptian government that the Nazis helped bring into power back in the 1950s with the overthrow of King Farouk. So in other words, this organization had major political influence after the war. It was involved in some notorious activity, and we're still living with the consequences of it.
Oh, my.
Oh, my.
How complicated the web is weaved, I think.
Oh, yes, yes. And you must remember something else, and something also equally frightening. It was during World War II and continuing after World War II that you had contact between these Nazis and this organization and radical Islam. Nothing like
opening a great big can of worms in the last few minutes available to us.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But having opened
this is a huge story.
Thoughts there.
Pardon me?
Having opened that can, though, a couple thoughts there.
Well, one of the things I talk about in the Nazi International is that one of the activities that it became involved as a covert hidden sponsor in was international terrorism. You find, if you research the history of terrorism, you'll run into the fact that in the late 1970s, there was a so-called terrorist summit that occurred in nationalist Spain. This was when General Franco was still alive. That occurred in nationalist Spain. What you won't often discover is that the sponsors of that terrorist summit, which included Muammar Gaddafi and then Yasser Arafat and so on and so forth, was one SS Colonel Otto Skorzeny. And incidentally, it was Skorzeny who helped overthrow King Farouk, who helped Gamal Abdel Nasser train Egyptian intelligence, who brought in a bunch of Nazis to help do this. So in other words, you're dealing with a very, very powerful organization that has been involved in recent events and that has connections with contemporary things. So in other words, we have to at least admit, for the sake of argument, for the sake of possibility, that much of what we're being told concerning contemporary events may not be the complete truth.
And of course, we don't have the time to fully explore, that set of real estate. But in the interest of teasing and provoking the listening audience, would you maybe feel like making mention of at least one example
of a contemporary event that may have other explanations?
Possibly, yes. Yeah. In this case, we're just setting the stage, hopefully, for a future conversation where we can pick up that thread and run. But so if you'd rather kind of keep everyone in suspense, that's fine as well.
Well, I don't know, because the problem here is I have lots of speculations and thoughts, but I normally like to speculate after I've written a book where I can lay out arguments more completely. But
sure, naturally, and point in fact, that is the singular reason I have such esteem, respect, and regard for your work is precisely that. There are so many folks in pursuing the threads of research today that they're willing to range far afield in speculation. Almost from the beginning, and I've always very much appreciated the disciplined approach that you bring, Dr. Farrell, and that you, to put it into, kind of average parlance, you like to have your ducks in a row before you really start to talk a lot about the ducks.
Well, it's not to say that I don't speculate. I do, But and some of it's very wild speculation, I'll grant you, but at least I try and argue it. I do think that there is something going on right now in today's world that smacks of a kind of covert war. I'm kind of the opinion, Antonin, and I don't want to get too deeply into this, but I'm kind of the opinion that the Anglo-American banking corporate elite is on the defensive, and that to a certain extent they are showing the signs of panic. I think that they are under some real severe pressure. I think that a gun was put to their head, I'll just say within, let's say, the last 12 years.
Okay.
And that when they didn't comply, the trigger was pulled. And I think that if you look at certain events a certain way, you can speculate on the possibility that we're looking at a real honest-to-God covert war taking place right in front of our eyes. But it doesn't look like that because, let's put it this way, Mother Nature provides the perfect plausible deniability.
Yes. Anyone in the listening audience that is adept at reading between the lines, I think your eyebrows just raised. At least I hope that they did. And Dr. Farrell, unfortunately, that really brings us here to about the end of the time that we have available on this program. And sir, it has really been a distinct honor for me to have you join the Crimson Pill and speak on the body of your work and research. And I sincerely hope that we can have a chance sometime soon to pick up the thread of this conversation and move it forward.
Sure. It's been my pleasure, and I'll be glad to be back.
Well, I appreciate that. And your closing thoughts, Dr. Farrell, here on today's program. I hope once again you'll tell folks how they can most quickly come to get closer to your research, your website, and any other closing thoughts that you have.
Well, no. If they want to look into my books or order my books, the best way to do that is just go to my website, which is www.GizaDeathStar.com, and that's spelled GizaDeathStar.com. And there is a web store there that has all my books if they want to order them off of there. But yeah, I think in terms of what we've discussed, I think that you really, in order to understand what's going on right now, you have to kind of have a historical background. And my own opinion is that at least part of that background, I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination all of it by any means, but at least part of that background is provided by the peculiar circumstances of the end of World War II and the most likely survival of Nazism as an ideology and as an organizational research structure. I think that's the real frightening potential here.
Indeed, indeed. And in my heart, always one to be the provocateur. I'll provide one or two more teasers to the listening audience. Folks, do a search. Look up Operation High Jump. Learn a little bit about Admiral Byrd and some of his comments on the matter. Do a search for the name Smedley Butler, a distinguished and highly decorated member of the U.S. Armed Services, and he had some thoughts and observations by the time he retired, perhaps was retired from his work. A lot of other fascinating things. Dr. Farrell, I wish we had 20 hours today alone, because I still don't think we could have made it through all of the real estate. But sir, thank you again so very much for your time and helping us become familiar with the subject.
All right. Thank you, Antonin.
Thank you. Thank you, and take care, and hopefully we can touch base and rejoin our conversation soon.
Sure.
Very good. Well, folks, you've been listening to The Crimson Pill. I am your host, Antonin Fiore. We were joined today by Dr. Joseph Farrell. It was a distinct pleasure and honor to have him with the program, with his expertise and the work that he's done. At this time, we'll sign off for today. Please keep in mind that the show is available in the program archives on bbsradio.com, station number 2. We look forward to having you back with us again next week. We'll pick up our threads of research with Dr. Stanley Monteith and explore some of his work and observations in his career. And again, very much we appreciate having you with us and having your open mind available as we explore some of these subjects that are just so amazing, so fascinating, and at times so chilling. Once again, thank you so much. Antonin Fiore signing out. We'll see you next week.